Welcome to MechWorks PDM quick introduction video in using the MechWorks PDM as a non-CAD user. My name is Glenn and I'll be your presenter today. So what we're going to do is go straight over to the standalone client using the MechWorks PDM as a non-CAD user. So for the purpose of this presentation, what the user has is two standalone clients open, but logged in by different users. So this first one we're looking at here, we go to here, we can see that this has been logged in by Sales Mike. Now the thing to remember here is Sales Mike probably has a lot more privileges that would not normally be assigned to a salesperson. Now the other standalone client we have here, this one has been logged in by Dorf. And Dorf has very few privileges, probably just to be able to look at documents, maybe do a few other things that Dorf needs to do for his job. So let's go back to Sales Mike here. And the first thing we want to note is that Sales Mike is working in this project here. And the reason we know that is that it has this red arrow pointing at it. This big red arrow is showing that this is the project the Sales Mike is working in. And really, all a project is, it's a container and allows the user to logically organize their documents. Now, the thing to remember with the different projects is that each project could have, say, a document like this one in more than one project. And if we go to the use by on here, we can see that this document here is in two different projects. It could be in many projects, but there's only one physical file. So what Mike wants to do first is Mike has been working on a template down here for a customer. It's a Word document, and if we open up this Word document, we can see it's for a company, and it's XYZ company. And what Mike wants to do is save this into the repository and register it into the MechWorks PDM database. And the thing to notice here is that MechWorks PDM, because it is integrated with the Microsoft products, has added a ribbon to this Word document. So what Mike's going to do here is going to select Save As. And what that will do is present Mike with the automatic numbering formats. And these have been created by your administrator, and you can have as many or as few as you need. They're there so that you can meet your numbering criteria, and depending on what you have within your organization, to how many of these you may have. And for this case, Mike's going to pick the generic file and select OK. This will present Mike with the record card for that file, and it gave the file number, or the ID, the next sequential number. And in this case, Mike has the ability to go in here and change the description. So what we're going to do is enter and then select OK. So what's that done is it saved that into the repository and registered into the database. So we can actually go in here and we can close this, and we can go back to Mike's login here, and we can see that it added that document into Mike's project. So some of the things that we can do with the documents, and Mike might want to do here, is that with this document, and if we go over here right now to Dorf's login, we can see that here's the file. It's showing that it's checked out to Sales Mike. And if Dorf goes in here, he has the opportunity to do life cycling, to edit this document, and to see this document. Now, if perhaps Mike's thinking, you know what, I put this document in there, I don't want anybody to be able to edit it, what Mike can do is add a record level permission to this particular document. So if we go back here, we can say edit revisions, and then we're going to go over to the notes here, and what it has in here is that dbwarm class, which is adding that record level permission. And in this case, what Mike wants to add is no edit, and we'll select OK. And the first thing you'll notice here is it added this visual cue to this document, and this is showing visually, as soon as somebody sees that this has a record level permission of no edit. So now if we go over to Dorf here, we can see that he has this icon next to it, and it's showing that it's not to be edited. And if Dorf goes in here, you can see he doesn't have the ability to life cycle it, and there's no editing in here whatsoever. Now the other thing that we can show here is that perhaps Mike wants to hide this file from certain people. And again, this is a record level permission, so Mike can go into here, go back to the notes, and this time instead of no edit, he could select no view, and we'll select OK. And now we can see that the icon changed to this visual cue, showing that this document has the no view permissions set against it. And if we go over to Dorf here, we can see that the document is no longer visible to Dorf. Not only is it not visible, if Dorf was to go down here and enter a search for that document, and we'll enter search, Dorf will not be able to see that document even in a search. Now if we go back to Mike here, and Mike does that same search, it will show that document to him. So this is a great tool. Perhaps, for instance, an administrator has some documents in there that and he doesn't want everybody to see them. He could apply this to it so only him and other certain people that have the privileges can see the document. Or if it's a secret document and you just don't want anybody to see it but yourself, you can apply this to it and nobody will know that document exists. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to find some documents that Mike wants to add to his project, and we can do that again with his quick search down here, and we can enter into here this and do a search, and these are all the documents that Mike wants in this project because that's to do with the part that he's making. So therefore Mike can select these and drag and drop them, and you can see here that it's presented with Mike saying, you sure you want to add these documents to that project? And Mike's going to select them all and say OK. And Mike has added all those to his project over here. Now the other thing Mike could do here is that Mike could say, you know what, I don't need to see all these other documents in all these other projects. What I want to do is just see the projects that are under the sales team. So Mike could select that and go down here and say, just show the selected projects only. And that will just show those sales projects just for Mike. And Dorf can go ahead and do the same. And it will just show those projects and files for Dorf as well. Now the thing to notice here is that you'll see that Dorf has a lot less documents that Dorf can see than Mike's seeing. And that's because Mike has some of these documents that are not visible to Dorf. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to quickly talk about the search tools that are available to the non-CAD user. And I'm not going to go into a lot of details on these because they are covered in their own webinar just about searching in the MechWorks PDM. Now the first tool was the one that we've already used down here, and that is the quick search. Now on this quick search, one of the things to note here is that if the user right mouse selects on this pair of binoculars, it will show all the previous searches that that user has done. The user can go into here, find a document perhaps that they're looking for, we'll say bolt, and that will list all the documents that meet that criteria. And obviously, if Mike wants to waste his day, he could sit here and look at each one of these because it's going to give you a visualization and information on that document. Or they could go down here and see how many documents that search criteria gave them. Or they could narrow down this search. And by narrowing it down, what they could do is add a multiple string to find the document that they're looking for. So for instance, Mike could go into here and enter that, hit the binoculars, it narrowed down the search. And then what Mike could do is add bolt, do another search, and that narrowed it down some more. So that's the quick search using a multiple string. Now real quickly here, if you know exactly what you're looking for, what the user could do down here is enter an exact string, and that will find the document that they're looking for. And of course, once a user has found these documents, they get a preview of it, look at the data card, and get the information they need off those documents. And the next method here is the filter. So we'll select that. And then what the user then can add some kind of information on the documents that they're looking for. Say tube, select OK. And that will present the user with all the documents that have tube in it. So the next method the user is going to look at here is the events. And that's over here in the shortcut menus. And with the event, an administrator could append these default searches in here, or they could create their own and add them in here. And generally, we found that the administrators tend to like to use the event log browser, which is this one, and we'll select that. And this is the event log browser here. And what the user can do is perhaps split this into different groups by dragging, say, this user ID up here. And if we look up and we'll move up to the top here, we can see that it separated it into different users. We have user Bill and user Dorf. We can add, say, an event date, add that up there. That'll break it into more groups. Also, you can add a filter in here, and we'll add bolt. And then what the user could do is find a document, perhaps that they're looking for, and we'll say perhaps this one, and then look at its record card. And let's just move this out of the way a bit. And here is the record card that the user was looking for. And it's going to have all the relevant information here that that user may want to look at on that particular document. So the final method we're going to look at here is the advanced filter. And I'm just going to go through this real quickly. As I mentioned before, it does have its own webinar on searching. The first area the user could search by are the projects. They can select which project or multiple projects they could search in. And then, of course, they could select the type of document. They can select in here the type of document that they're looking for, or we could use all types, the state of the document that they're looking for. In this case, we'll select that one. And then they would add a condition. And in this case, we're going to add a condition here, and we're going to say creation date is between, and then we'll just pick 2 dates. And select search. And that actually gave us the document that the user was looking for. But if they needed to, and they still had a lot of documents, they could add another condition. They can do and, or, and then put in here whatever kind of additional condition they need to have in there. Okay, so the next thing the user is going to look at right now is how the non-CAD user can be part of working on a bill of material. For instance, we have a document here, and if we look at this document, it consists of the main assembly with its parts, a sub-assembly, and their parts. And what the user could do is go into here and edit the bill of material. And in here, what the user could do is decide, say for instance, whether a part is made or not made or whatever. In this case, we're going to have it so the assembly is being made. And we'll select OK. So now, if this user goes down here and kicks out an Excel file, and here's the different formats that the user could choose. So we're going to select this one and select OK. And this will present the user with the Excel of that bill of material. And you'll notice here that it has all the parts of that top assembly, and then it's showing the parts of the sub-assembly. Now, if we go back here and we say, okay, we're going to go in here and edit that bill of material, and this time we'll say we're going to buy that sub-assembly, and we'll select OK. So now, when the user goes in here and outputs that Excel file, and we'll choose this, select OK, you can see that it just has that sub-assembly as the one part and that it's bought. Now the other thing to remember here is not everybody has the privileges to work on bill of materials. If we go to Dorf over here, and Dorf wants to look at that assembly here, and we can go down here, go to the bill of materials, you can see that Dorf does not have the privileges to edit the bill of material. Okay, and finally what I want to talk about here is the non-CAD user being part of the EC process. So if we go to this document here, and this is what it looks like, what we have here is that this document is in an engineering change process. You can tell by this visual cue of the EC. In fact, it's actually going through the workflow right now because there's this red X showing that it's in a workflow, and nobody can go ahead and change the state of that document until it's finished or being kicked out of that workflow. So if the user was part of this engineering change process and they had the privileges for it, they would go to the EC tab here, and this is the engineering change that it's going through right now. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with the engineering changes because yet again that has its own video. So we'll go here and we're going to view that document. So here's the document, and right now it's not in an editable state. So if the user passes over this edit button, you can see it's not locked. So they're allowed to open this up for editing if they have the privileges. And here we have the IR data form. Now you'll notice that this form not only has the one document, but it has several different documents that are part of this engineering change. And what happens as it goes through the workflow is going to collect the signatures and record who and the date and everything when these things went through the workflow. And the other thing about this obviously is that as part of this workflow, I could either go through and approve this or it could be rejected. And there's different choices here on the rejection. You could reject it back to the previous. You could reject it out of the workflow. You could reject it out of the workflow and terminate the workflow totally. Or you could place it on a manual hold. This could be, say, you need to go look up some information. You place it on the manual hold so everybody knows that you're not ignoring it. You're just out sorting out some information. Okay, so that's basically covering everything that the non-CAD user would use. We looked at the non-CAD user signing on, adding a document, manipulating documents, viewing the documents, searching for the documents, being part of the bill of material process, and then also being part of the engineering change process. So what we're going to do is go back to the PowerPoint and finish up this presentation. I want to thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please let us know. We would welcome the opportunity to provide a full product demonstration. It can be detailed to your organization's needs. Just give us a call at 1-800-573-6183, extension 701. Email us at sales@na-ips.com or see us online at www.na-ips.com. So again, thank you. This is Glenn. Until next time, goodbye.